So welcome to today's webinar with HRLocker. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Christelle Rinn and I'm the CMO here at HRLocker. Today we're delighted to have Tom Murphy with us and we'll be talking about future-proofing HR. So really concentrating on all the different systems that you have within your company, specifically around the systems, I suppose, that have so that you're around the employee touch points for the systems that you have. So I suppose one of the reasons why we looked at doing this webinar this month is with COVID, I suppose there's been kind of mass remote working movement. And as a result, I suppose a lot of companies had to put in a lot of new software to be able to manage their remote working teams. And now we're all hopefully returning back to the office and in whatever capacity that people are going back in, whether it's remote or hybrid or kind of a joint setup or even full-time back in the office. And I think that now is a really good way to kind of look at, do a survey in regards to what systems you currently have working for you in regards to your employee management. And we're really going to focus on this webinar in terms of how to effectively run your hybrid teams and maximize productivity through software. We're really delighted to have partner with us, Tom from Commend HR, to run through the steps on how you can ensure that you have the right tools in place. So Tom, if you'd like to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, hello everybody. Tom Murphy here. I'm the owner of Commend HR, and I tried to get Recommend HR, but the name wasn't available, so I had to do a Commend. So Commend's good, commendable, it's fine. So I've kind of worked in IT for the last 25 years, and mainly in the last kind of 10 years in software as a service, so your cloud-based solutions. And in the last few years, I've worked with people management systems, so and directly for different types of software providers out there in the marketplace. Like I set up Commend HR about a year ago, and what I want to do is be able to give people choice. So I'm a vendor independent people management software specialist. So I go in and I talk to businesses, and based on a lot of different processes and interviews, I'll recommend the right solution for that business that's a right fit for them. So that's what I do. I take away the risk for business owners and for HR managers when choosing the appropriate HR software. I've seen a lot of horror stories over the years where, recently a customer of mine had to throw out a system that they paid 60,000 euros for because it just wasn't fit for purpose. So I help businesses make that decision, and it saves them time, but it also takes away the risk.
And I think the key thing, Tom, that I'm kind of going to jump on and kind of focus on for the rest of the webinar is that it just because one software system may be working for another company doesn't mean it's necessarily going to work for your company. Every company has different needs, right?
100%. I mean, so I'm working with a company at the moment. They've 100 staff. They're going to grow up to 300. They're a gaming company. They're going to be 100% remote. They're going to need systems that will be in Russian, Indian, German. They're going to need all of their engagement will be done online, their training, etc. Recruitment, all of that. So they have a very particular set of requirements, and their payroll software is going to be a solution that has to be multiple jurisdictions globally. So yeah.
Yes, complicated. Yes,
very much so. Yeah.
You've got to get a software system that works for your company.
Yes.
We're just going to run through, I suppose, the topics that we're going to cover today. So most importantly, I suppose, how to future-proof your business. And I think the key thing at this stage is whether it's for hybrid teams, back in the office, all remote, you need to make that assessment yourself in regards to how your company's working. And the digital touch points. So what I like with this is that, Tom, we spoke about this, is that how many different pieces of software does your employee touch throughout the day? Even ourselves, I'd say we probably have 15 at this stage. So that's important just to assess the different areas that, even if it's just in different teams, I definitely think in the last few months, the kind of amount of software that people are using is kind of clocked up. And then I do think we're going to, how do you currently do a review of your current tech tools? So what's working for you, what's not working for you, what's maybe an overhead, what maybe you can amalgamate together, things like that. And then key, which Tom I know is something that is important to you, is the stakeholder buy-in. So specifically, you've got all these lovely softwares in place, but ultimately if your employees aren't using it, it's pointless. And then the 5-step process to digital transformation. So Tom, that's your golden ticket there. That's the $1 million question. So I'll remain
Sure.
quiet for that bit. So, and I think we've just gone through this in somewhat, is that I don't think there's any, Tom, you might disagree with me, is I don't think there's any company that has escaped having the software creep come in over the last 12 months or 12 to 18 months. So that's something we're going to look at, how your tech actually affects your company. Whether it's Microsoft Teams or Zoom or Skype or whatever. Well, no, Skype's gone now, isn't it? Whatever you're using, and how you can effectively get those software tools actually working for you and making sure that you're increasing your productivity. As I keep saying with this, with anybody who's actually even trialing our own software, is that it's not supposed to. Software isn't supposed to make your life harder. It's supposed to make your life easier. So Tom, you'll give us some insights into that.
Yep.
So I suppose the first area we're going to look at, Tom, is we're living in this, like I said, this digital world. A lot of companies have too many apps, too many softwares in place. What do you think are the key digital touch points that you need covered when managing your employees?
Okay, well, so when you talk about digital touch points, the whole kind of definition of digital transformation is moving from traditional through to digital. So like whether meetings, for example, you can't. A lot of meetings are done online now. So kind of key thing about digital touch points is how do you communicate with your employees? Whether that's through email, text, chat. But there's other communication mechanisms, like communicating with people in terms of kind of recruitment. So how do you recruit people now? It's the days are gone, where people potentially are going to come into your office and do an interview, that can be done online. So for example, using things like, LinkedIn, somebody applies for a job and they'll come through to your HR software, and you can go through the whole process and hire that person, send them out a contract, onboard them, somebody assigns them a laptop, somebody assigns them an employee handbook. And that's all done through that. The key thing about digital touch points as well is, though, the more you have in an organization, the better your organization is. There's loads of kind of stats around, multiple touch points equals to kind of retention within your business. I think some companies have an 82% increase in retention. How do you train your employees online? Have you got a learning management system? Do you create content? Gone are the days of kind of bringing in an external provider. People not want to train people online now. So how do you do that? How do you engage your staff? How do you measure health, safety, and well-being? Have you got a mechanism for that that's actually online? Is there a tool that you would use? Like people working from home, display screen equipment. How do you train people up in that? Are they sat in the right seat? Are they using the right technology? You can get sued for stuff like that. Performance, how do you gauge your employees online? How do you have one-to-ones, 360 degrees? How do you get your employees to give you anonymous feedback, peer reviews? Are your employees satisfied? So the main answer I would say to all of this is, in terms of systems, it's always good to have one solution doing most of this kind of digital touch point communications, and then other solutions maybe feeding into that. But that's something that somebody like me or your business needs to figure out what's the best tools that will work together as a cohesive unit. But usually you should have one system to do most of this kind of engagement.
I think that's kind of the important thing at the moment, Tom, is that I wonder the last kind of couple of months of people just kind of floundered and taken, this app to do this and this app to this, and now we've got 20 apps. And it's very complicated, and some aren't being used and some are being used. And even just from a cost saving perspective, it's probably important just to be looking at what you're using, what you aren't using, what can be amalgamated.
And what it is as well is with systems, every solution, any solution that's worth its salt, what they call best in class solutions, has what they call an API. And people are always afraid by API. API, all it is a key. It's a piece of code. You put it into one solution. It brings the two solutions together. So perfect example of that would be potentially, Microsoft Teams integrated with your HR software, so that you can actually communicate with your staff online, have meetings, but also you can use Teams within your systems as well for, let's say you have a business that needs to have what they call instructor-led training. So somebody live giving training, that can be done through Teams on your system. So those integrations are very, very important as well. And the more integrated you are with your systems, the more data-driven decisions you can make as a business. There's no point in having all these, silos of different systems and taking data here, there, and everywhere, and that doesn't work. I mean, it's it's the ability to do that. And also, there's really good what they call data warehousing tools out there. So what a data warehousing like the likes of Microsoft Power BI will do, it takes all of these applications, all these systems, and all those metrics and information you get from those solutions, and it gives you the information that you need, whether it be in graphical representation or numerical, and gives you information that helps you make decisions about your business going forward as a cohesive one message system.
Yeah, and that's actually interesting you say that, Tom, because we've had a lot of people recently, really kind of in the last kind of 6 to 8 months, who would be looking at the data warehousing with us to get all their information into one reporting system, so the one Power BI reporting, which is, you kind of start throwing these words around, and it's always important that people know what they actually mean, which is good. Yeah. Sorry, I'm going the wrong way. So I'm in the right place here. So reviewing your workplace text tools. So I'm wondering, Tom, what's the best way? Do you think we've got this this problem at the moment in regards to we have so many tech tools? How do you start the review of the process, or where do you start, I suppose?
Well, the best salute pieces of advice to give you is you call me.
We'll have
outside of that,
your details.
Outside of that, what you do is you review all your systems that you're using. Your payroll, your people management software. It could be Excel. It could be whatever solutions you have to manage all your employees. You do what they call an as-is audit. So what does your business currently look like? And then once you have all that information in place, then you can put a report together, and so you know where you're at, exactly what the systems are you're currently utilizing, and then you can move on to the next stage where you're talking to stakeholders. Well, I really don't like the word stakeholders. I don't know where that came from. It's basically people within a representative of each department within that organization. You're talking to them then about what they want, what their pain points are, what the goals are of the business, etc.
Yeah, and I think the key with we talk about the stakeholders here and the buy-in, Tom, it's the stakeholder doesn't have to be the manager or whoever, it's the people who are ultimately using the piece of software, right?
Yeah, so stakeholder is, anybody that it affects. So that's everybody within the organization. Yeah. A really good example of that would be, I'm dealing with a large food manufacturer. Well, not the food, they make all sorts of other stuff. They're, let's say, manufacturer. And they're putting in a learning management system, and kind of just for the people that might know what a learning management system is. A learning management system is basically a system that allows you to create content. It could be videos that you have to watch that are tagged. You have to watch them all the way through. It could be documents for compliance, and all of this kind of learning that's delivered online. At the end of it, there's usually an assessment. It could be tick box in A, B, C, or D. There's various different formats and how you complete that assessment. So that's a whole, what they call a learning management system. So this large kind of manufacturing company, their main challenge was, how do we get the operatives on the floor to buy into this and to use this system? And because a lot of people, they might not have email addresses, they might not have the right mobile technology. So part of my job was to, interview the people on the ground. They were the most important people to talk to about the system, not the senior managers, not the HR, not logistics, not whoever else. And what we found was, by actually implementing touchscreens throughout the various different facilities, that the operatives and people working on the floor, they could actually, go and get that training to deliver to them. And, and the metrics at the end of this was able to tell us that, there was quite a large buy-in from the staff who were actually looking and learning from the systems as well. So that was a solution that was solved through interviewing, people on the ground, everybody within that organization.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more, Tom. It's sometimes, when you're taking on a system in place, you buy it for yourself and it's what you like and it's how easy it is to set up. But what's most important is to look at it from the everyday user perspective, right? To see how easy it is for the user.
I think it's good to kind of get people all together as well. I've seen it over the years, where you talk to the HR managers, your learning and development specialists or payroll person, and they talk to you about all the great things that they want in the system. And then at the end, and once you go through all this process, at the end, then they bring in the IT department, and it's normally questions like, where's your data stored? Is it GDPR compliant? It's all kind of security technical questions, which, the IT department should have been involved from the start of the process,
yes.
And their systems can handle all of that and every other, department within the organization. So it's always good. It's always good to, work cohesively, because different departments will have different needs, and they don't necessarily like each other or respect each other from a departmental type of way. So it's always good. And the worst thing is you're going to end up in a situation where you're just putting out fires. You're trying to please one person, one group to another group. Whereas if you have a single kind of agreement on what you're going to do in terms of delivering that solution across that business, well, the implementation and success of that project will be far higher.
Yeah, and I would certainly have that experience here, John, is that we would be in the middle of implementing a system or right down to the end, and then all of a sudden another department becomes involved and you're back to step one again. So I would absolutely concur. Try to get as many people in who try to get every interested party in place at the beginning, and like you said, usually we get a last minute call from somebody. They've just got the stuff from IT saying that these are all the things that you need. So that I certainly agree that it's important. So Tom, now that we're down the route, we've assessed, we've decided on kind of what's working for us. We've ditched the software that hasn't. We're all integrated. Stakeholders are in. We're very happy. How do you actually, and this is $1 million question, Tom, how do you measure success then if software is actually working for you or not?
Okay, so there's various different tools, but what I would say is there's different types of methodologies in terms of delivering solutions, and Agile is one that I really like, because Agile is you're constantly testing and measuring systems. So what that could be, it could be talking to stakeholders all the time. How is this going for you? Is this working out for you? It could be getting metrics from any systems that you're currently utilizing, or also what we talked about earlier is data warehousing. So bringing all that data together, and so that you can get the information that you need from the likes of kind of Microsoft Power BI. But it's that constant measuring of how things are going within your business, within the systems that you're working with. And you know what, you need to kind of be clear in terms of what you need to get out of this system. Is this system being implemented to reduce costs? Is it to increase employee engagement? Is it for employee satisfaction? Is it to automate processes so that you save admin time? Is it so your key people within the organization, rather than spending a lot of time in admin, they can focus under people, people under people, not processes. And a lot of systems, what I like in kind of this post-COVID kind of time we're living in, it's a lot of it's down to systems that I'm seeing now, and they're the ones that are going to win in the long term, are what they call people-centric systems. So I know it sounds a bit crazy when you say to a business, it's not about the business. It's about if your staff are happy, multiple touch points, you're engaging with them, they're satisfied within their organization. If they're happy, then you're going to have a healthy business. And a lot of people working out there today, they're savvy. People working in industries, is not, you don't have to spend 10 years in a business. You can spend a year in a business, move on to the next business. And, there's nobody's going to even think twice about that. That's the world we live in. And so these people are also very, very smart. They know, what they want within the workplace, and they want to be happy. They want to be, it's not just about pay. They want to have a nice place to work, and you need to be able to gauge that information going forward. And it's all about these, customer-centric solutions that are business-centric. So the winners out there in the marketplace are going to be the businesses that can attract, engage, and retain their employees. So when you talk about metrics and what are the outcomes, surely one of the biggest outcomes in your business is employee satisfaction. You want your employees to be advocates for your business, to actually shout from the rooftops how great a place it is to work. Like I know with HRLocker, very happy employees. A lot of people have worked there a long, long time. They're advocates for the business. They talk about how great it is to work within HRLocker. And that's what any business needs to strive for. And that's what's going to make you, more, as a business, it'll attract the right talent in your organization.
Yeah, and I couldn't agree with you more, Tom. And I also think that, which I'm agreeing with you, is that if you're giving people tools that don't really work, or are annoying, or are cumbersome, or make their job harder, then ultimately their job isn't, they're not happy in their job. So there's touch points which you introduced me to last week, which I think is just excellent idea, is that you need to it's just so many software systems out there. There's so many things that employees are involved in, and if one of them is upsetting their day or making their day less productive, you'd need to figure it out and replace it or change it or whatever the solution
I
is.
see a lot of systems out there now as well. So you're going to have there's a lot of learning management systems, a lot of kind of what they call career and personal development systems. So when an employee becomes part of the staff, they come in, they'll do a soft skills assessment, and then they'll find out areas that they may be deficient in. It could be critical thinking, problem solving, leadership. And when within that, while they're within the organization, they can be given trained up or get courses on improving those areas. So even though you're as a business, it might sound kind of counterintuitive to train your staff up to make them more employable by another employer. That it's a very good thing for your business to be able to do that kind of whole career personal development, and staff will stay longer within your organization. And there's loads of kind of tools out there that can help your business achieve that as well.
Yeah, and I hope we've kind of moved away from this. You're training them up to leave. You're training them up to improve your business. That's the key, and that hopefully they'll stay. Before I go into this 5-step process, I'm going to just take a step back, because one of the things that we've recently gone through putting in a subscription system into HRLocker, and one of the words that was kind of thrown around a lot was the source of truth. What's the single source of truth? So with the amount of software that companies are using, not to manage I suppose to manage employees, is it important to have that single source of truth? So you've got 5 or 6 pieces of software, but is there one that is the ultimate truth?
Yeah, I mean, so the single source of truth for everybody out there is, it's basically, it's usually the main HR system. It's a system that you would, I guess, let's say somebody applies from LinkedIn into your HR software, and you kind of go through the whole interview process with them, and then the training's built into that system, maybe performance, clocking in, rotas, attendance, whatever that may be. That would be your single source of truth, and it's always good to have that as that main product, and then all these other systems can feed into that. We talked about kind of APIs and connecting systems up. But that's hugely critical. I mean, one system is very, very important to kind of have. You can't just have different systems doing different things. So yeah, your main HR system, a bit like HRLocker or other providers out there, which would be what they call a single source of truth system. You have that in place, and then have that connected to other solutions. So, and it's always good to have, there's a lot of systems out there that kind of people spend a huge amount of money on. It's like your Workdays of this world, that cost an absolute fortune. You can get lesser systems, but systems that aren't as expensive. But what they do have is the ability to integrate with other best-in-class providers. Because if you have the best of one solution integrated with the best of another solution, then you've got a hell of a good solution.
And I suppose we're seeing that recently, and Tom, we had a discussion about this, is the integration side of it, do you think that is just pivotal going forward for most companies?
I think so, because gone are the days. I'll tell you. So back in the day, when the big crash in 2007, when it all went bang, and then all these businesses were starting to realize, what, I don't want to be paying for these massive on-premise solutions that are costing me an absolute fortune, and then I got to change them in 5 years' time. It's going to cost me another few $100,000 or whatever it is. So basically, that's where SaaS came in. So software as a subscription came in, where businesses actually were paying on a monthly or an annual basis for systems that's constantly developing and upgrading. So what I'm seeing now is within the kind of HR software world is, rather than these people businesses buying these big massive systems that all singing, all dancing, and none of these all-in-one solutions, there's always areas where they fall down. So what I'm seeing is, people buying more cost-effective solutions, best in class in whatever area that may be. It could be your single source of truth. It could be an applicant tracking system integrated. It could be, a time and attendance and clocking solution, payroll, whatever they may be. But getting those best in class solutions, turning that API key, and then working together, it'll actually end up being a better solution, but it'll also end up being a far cheaper solution as well. And I don't mean by cheap, I mean by more cost
affordable.
effective.
Yeah, and I would certainly see that as well. So, I mean, we'll go into, I suppose, really to summarize, Tom, is we've gone through everything in regards to how to get getting the stakeholders in place, or the key buy-ins. Don't be naive to think that you've only one digital touch point. You've got several, right? Can you give us, I suppose, the 5-step process to creating an official an efficient digital transformation. So really managing both those remote and hybrid teams, or if you're in the office.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one is as is, the as is audit, completely kind of looking through all your processes, all the systems you're currently utilizing, what they do, and then putting together that document or report on exactly how everything as is at the minute. The second part is, how do you communicate with your employees? How does everybody in the organization communicate? And this is traditional versus digital. So, we meet in an office, we meet online, that type of thing. So all your different comms, how do you train your employees? Do you train people on site? Do you train people remote? Do you do both? Is there a hybrid model? Doing that piece. So it's all that's the kind of multiple digital touch points. It's very key to kind of find out how that works within your organization. And the third part is then talking to all your stakeholders. We just discussed that everybody within the organization has an input, what are their pain points? What would they like in a new system? What's the goals within the business based on each department or stakeholder? Is the business scaling? And then the next aspect would be, the planning, the implementation, deciding on, what way you're going to do. Are you changing your systems, taking out one piece, putting in another? Planning, implementation. And then the fifth part, which is the most important part, I think, of any solution, is once it's delivered and put in, or you've made changes, or you've just made changes to your existing systems, whatever you've decided on, test and measure. Always be testing, always be measuring all the time. It's not just, you put in this traditional, project management methods would have been massive job, take a year, put the system in, and then test and measure. It's not like that. It's you have to be agile. It's constantly testing and constantly measuring, talking to people all the time, getting those data metrics all the time, and then also taking all those metrics from all of those various different systems and applications that you use, and putting them all into one application like data warehousing, like Microsoft Power BI or whatever, and getting the information from that system that actually will allow your business to make data-driven decisions.
Yeah, I think that's key, isn't it, Tom? It's that data-driven decision, rather than just kind of doing it on a feeling base, So I have a few questions here, Tom, if we're happy to take them. So the first one here is, we have a very old HR system, and I would love to use something more modern. Well, I hope they're looking at HRLocker. Is, how do I convince the company to switch?
Yeah, so that's again, that's the kind of the question, and I'll tell you, this is kind of interesting story, but it'll kind of give you some insights. There's a company in Northern Ireland, they're 20 staff, they were looking for payroll software solution, and there's loads of people on Facebook business page, NI business page, and they were saying, oh, buy this solution, buy that solution, and all of these solutions that they were recommending were not solutions for that business. Two of them were for global, payroll within multiple jurisdictions. Another one was for an enterprise solution for over 1,000 people. So completely wrong. I sent the lady a kind of Facebook message saying, I don't know what you want, and I'm a specialist, I need to delve more into it. Similar to this kind of question here, but what I would definitely say is, look at the amount of time that you spend on your system. How much admin time do you do within that system? What are you getting out of the solution? And because it's all about the return on investment. So for example, if you have a far more smoother onboarding applicant tracking system process, how much time is that going to save you? If you have electronic signatures, that's going to save you time. All of these kind of multiple touch points. But I can't give you a definitive answer. But the main kind of, when I always look at these systems, is what is the time spent? What's the cost you're spending on that system versus what a new system can deliver? And there's loads of kind of stats out there on what they call, employee lifecycle solutions, or HR products, what they can do, what the stats are behind them. I'm sure HRLocker has loads of information on, what their solutions will do in terms of return on investment and time saved. So that's kind of doing a bit of research on that side of things. I don't know what the solution is. If it's an old solution, it probably doesn't have a lot of those. And one of the biggest things that I come across all the time is talking to businesses that, well, we don't get the right reporting out of a solution. So what they're doing is they're actually getting a report, getting whatever it is, pulling it into Excel, changing it up and pushing it out into another report. Any decent system where it's solved, you'll be able to get whatever report you need. You can build out your own custom reports, and it's a far quicker process. Like businesses who spend, it was one business. It was a chain of restaurants, had 8 restaurants, and they were spending 5 days a month in admin, because what they were doing was they were spending time changing rosters, swapping shifts, taking that data, putting it into payroll. I implemented an integrated payroll and a HR solution, which saved them those 5 days. It actually got it down to 1 day a month in terms of admin. It was able to show all of the employees who actually were full-time because they had to clock in. So they were making sure they were doing all their hours, and it's saving them thousands of quid a month in terms of kind of, money spent, staff being allocated to do other tasks rather than data input admin, every month.
And I think that's
so hopefully I answered that. Yeah. Sorry if it was a bit long-winded.
I think what is key, which I would totally agree with you, is that a lot of the time with HR systems, they're seen kind of like as a nice to have, like the HR function in terms of, whereas if you're positioning it, if you have to make a business case, if you're positioning it in terms of an ROI, I think that's key. So you're actually going to the boardroom table with some figures to say, if I put this in place, I'm going to save 3 days, 4 days, exactly like you just said there. So we're going to save money by actually putting this in place.
Yeah, I mean, you could actually. I've seen a lot of stats out there with these systems and lists of different. And for example, a lot of systems I put in, let's say it's 100 companies, staff at 100 employees. You can realize 20,000 euros a year plus savings within the system, and you could be paying like not even that for that system, and then year on year you're saving more money. So there's a cloud-based HR solution, a full kind of end-to-end solution which does all of those things, that can save you a hell of a lot of money every year.
Yeah, and we have an ROI calculator. I'll put it in the chat, and you're welcome Brilliant. To use it. The other question here, and I'm not sure if it's from the same person, it might be, is, and this is, I think it's still a bit of how long is a piece of string, but how hard is migration usually, and how do we approach it? Migrating for a number of solutions. I want to migrate a number of solutions into one.
Yeah, I mean, so what you're doing is you're migrating the data from those solutions. So most kind of implementation people like myself, what we do is we take that data and we put it on a template, and then we move it across onto the overarching system. So whatever that system is. And when you do a migration, a lot of project people, what happens is they try and migrate all the data all in one go. So what I'll always do, or any business, I'm sure HRLocker is the same, you take one person, you migrate them across. If that works, you start 10 people, 50, 100, 200, whatever that may be, and you do it kind of in segments like that. And it's all about kind of the data cleanup. And a lot of systems that happen is kind of you're matching columns, making sure that the headings are right. So you're getting that information right before you pull it into that whatever solution that may be. So it's actually putting it on a template initially, and then pulling that from that template into that system.
Yeah, and I would, we've gone through this a number of times, and with yourself, Tom, as well, is that you need to decide what data you're bringing over, Tom. Isn't that like, we've had some companies who are looking to bring data over from 20 years ago, and it's going to cost you. They were looking at getting the data, and the data is not correct. There's no point in putting bad data in.
Yeah, legacy data is a pain. If you don't need it, don't bring it across. I would definitely, unless it's, it's well, to be honest with you as well, a lot of data you have these days now as well, it's you have to get rid of it after a certain amount of time based on kind of GDPR. But yeah, legacy data, I mean, it's if it's not, just don't bother. I mean, just whatever your current systems are, whatever, you might have a policy for people left within the last year or 2 years, that you can maybe keep them on the system or whatever. Whatever you decide on, but don't get go down that kind of rabbit hole of legacy data, because it'll end up costing you, and it's an absolute nightmare,
Yeah, and that's exactly it. We've had a number of times with people to say, look, we can do whatever you want, but if you're putting bad data in, it's still bad data, and like that, it's going to take you days to get it right. And are you ever going to look at it?
You can still have specific data on another kind of stored somewhere else. It just doesn't necessarily have to be on your main system, your main HR system, or whatever it is,
Yeah. Yeah. So I have one last question here, Tom, before we wrap it up, is that I have one here saying that we're a tech company and we're looking to build a bespoke HR system. Do you think this is a good idea?
In short, no. I'll be straight with you, because I've seen a lot of systems over the years, and there's a lot involved in it, and there's a hell of a lot more programming than you think. So what I would definitely recommend is, and there's great value for money out there. There's great software as a service solutions. They're there, and they do everything they do. They've been tried and tested over the years, and I would say you don't necessarily have to buy it all in one, but if there's core areas that you want to focus on, it could be the whole kind of onboarding process. It could be, in terms of kind of online training. If you're a tech company, you might have people working in different locations globally. I don't know the ins and outs of the business, but when you're looking at systems, it's always good to focus. What's the most important elements of a HR system that you want, and they're the elements to focus on. But I wouldn't advise you on going down that road unless you're a tech company that's actually going to build a system out and sell it, and that's well, then a different proposition then as well. So, but it's a very competitive market, and you need to have a very, very good and unique offering to be able to compete with the likes of your HRLockers of this world and other software companies out there.
So thanks a million, Tom. I hope everybody found that really useful. Tom, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you?
Yeah, I have a website, Commend HR, COMMEND, commendhr.com. I'm one of these people, I never stop working. So give me a call. There's loads of the contact details are there. Happy to have a chat with anybody. What I do is I enjoy what I do because I like solving people's problems. I enjoy people not having to spend a fortune on systems. I see it all the time. People getting ripped off for solutions that they don't necessarily need, that are too much for what they're doing. And then, I just enjoy helping people. So give me a shout. Initial conversation. It's a free conversation. So by all means, and thank you for the time. I really appreciate HRLocker for having me on today. And
no, we're delighted to have you on, Tom. I think we've worked with Tom a number of occasions and couldn't recommend you more. So all your details will be with the webinar. So we'll be sending this out to people as well. So and again, if anybody is looking to get in contact with myself or anybody at the support team, we're always happy to take a call. So thanks everybody, and we'll talk to you soon.
Cheers. Thanks a lot, everybody. Cheers. Bye-bye.